What if I told you that right now, as you watch this video, your brain is not showing you reality? It's showing you a filtered, predicted, constructed version of reality, shaped entirely by what you believe is possible. And here's the part that changes everything. Scientists recently discovered that this filtering system might be the biological mechanism behind manifestation, which means manifestation isn't spiritual wishful thinking. It's neuroscience. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to prove it to you with a 24-hour experiment that thousands of people swear changed their perception forever. But I need to warn you, once you understand how your brain creates your reality, you'll never look at your thoughts the same way again. I'm the quantum philosopher, and this is Quantum Genesis, where science meets the soul. Today, you're going to discover the science behind manifestation, what actually happens in your brain. But before we begin, if you're ready to understand how your mind shapes reality, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive into the neuroscience that will change how you see everything. Let's begin. Part 1. The hidden filter that shapes your reality. Let's start with something that will blow your mind. Your brain is lying to you right now. Not maliciously, but out of necessity. Every single second, your 5 senses are bombarded with approximately 11 million pieces of information. 11 million. But here's the problem. Your conscious mind can only process about 40 to 50 pieces of information per second. So what happens to the rest? Where does it go? It gets filtered out, deleted, ignored. And the system responsible for this filtering is called the Reticular Activating System, the RAS. The RAS sits at the base of your brainstem like a neural gatekeeper, and its job is simple but profound. Decide what information gets through to your conscious awareness. And here's where manifestation begins to make scientific sense. The RAS doesn't filter randomly. It filters based on what your brain thinks is important. And what does your brain think is important? Whatever matches your current beliefs, dominant thoughts, emotional patterns, and sense of identity. This is why when you decide to buy a red car, you suddenly see red cars everywhere. They were always there, but your RAS wasn't highlighting them until you decided they were important. If you're expecting opportunities, your brain will scan for and present them to you. If you're expecting rejection, your RAS will highlight every micro-expression, every tone of voice, every possible sign that confirms that belief. If you're looking for abundance, your brain begins identifying pathways to it. This is not spiritual metaphor. This is not pseudoscience. This is hard neurology happening inside your brain right now. Your reality is being filtered through the lens of your internal world. And that means you're not seeing reality as it is. You're seeing reality as you are. Part 2. Why your brain predicts your reality. Now here's where things get even more fascinating and a little unsettling. Neuroscientists discovered something that completely changes how we understand perception. Your brain doesn't just react to reality, it predicts reality before you experience it. This is called the predictive processing model, and it's one of the most important discoveries in modern neuroscience. Here's how it works. Every millisecond, your brain is asking, what's most likely to happen next? And then, and this is critical, your brain creates your perception to match that expectation. You experience life through prediction, not perception. Think about that for a second. You're not experiencing reality directly. You're experiencing your brain's best guess about what reality should be based on your past experiences, beliefs, and expectations. And here's where manifestation begins to take scientific shape. Whatever expectations you repeatedly feed your brain become the blueprint that your nervous system uses to construct your experience of reality. A thought repeated enough times becomes a prediction. A prediction repeated enough times becomes your version of truth. And your version of truth determines what you notice, what opportunities you see, what actions you take, what you attract into your life, and what you unconsciously repel. This is why two people can walk through the exact same situation and have completely different experiences. They're not experiencing different realities. They're experiencing different predictions. and those predictions are built from their beliefs. Part 3. Your brain can't tell the difference. Now let's add another layer that makes this even more powerful. Your brain has a fascinating limitation, one that masters of manifestation have been exploiting for centuries, often without knowing the science behind it. Ready? Your brain cannot reliably distinguish between a vivid memory, a detailed imagination, or a future intention. Neuroscientists using fMRI scans discovered that when you vividly imagine an experience, nearly the same neural pathways fire as when you actually live that experience. Your brain stores your visualization as a real possibility, not as fantasy. This is why Olympic athletes spend thousands of hours visualizing their performances. Neurologically, they've already won. This is why surgeons mentally rehearse complex procedures before operating. This is why fighter pilots run simulations until the movements become automatic. They're not just hoping for success, they're neurologically preparing for it. This activates something called neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to physically rewire itself based on repeated mental patterns. So when people talk about aligning with your future self or stepping into the identity of who you want to become, they're actually describing a very real neurological process. You're creating a mental version of yourself that your brain begins to treat as familiar, and what's familiar feels safe. What feels safe becomes inevitable. Your brain doesn't like cognitive dissonance. Once you've convinced it that a future version of you is real, it will start making micro decisions throughout the day to align your behavior with that identity. This is manifestation at the neural level. Part 4. The secret ingredient most people miss. Now here's the part where most manifestation teaching completely falls apart. And if you've ever tried to manifest something and felt like it didn't work, this is probably why. Thought alone is not enough. You can repeat affirmations all day long. You can visualize your goals for hours. You can write in your journal until your hand cramps. But if your emotional state doesn't match your intention, your brain will default to the emotion, not the thought, every single time. Here's why. Your emotional brain, the limbic system, controls survival. And in the hierarchy of your nervous system, survival always outranks intention. Let me give you an example. If your thoughts say, I am abundant, money flows to me easily, but your emotions say, I'm scared, I'm insecure, I don't believe I deserve this, what if I fail? Which signal do you think your brain prioritizes? The emotional one. Because fear equals potential threat, and threats must be addressed immediately. This is called emotional encoding, and it's the reason why feeling states are more powerful than thinking states when it comes to manifestation. Your emotions tell your brain what's real, what's important, and what requires action. This is why gratitude practices work. Why feeling as if you already have what you want is so powerful. Why embodiment practices outperform mental repetition. You not just thinking a new reality, you re-feeling it into existence by convincing your emotional brain that it's already real. When thought and emotion align, manifestation accelerates. When they conflict, you stay stuck in the same patterns. Part 5. The Science-Spirituality Bridge. Now let us cross into the space where neuroscience meets something deeper, where the material meets the mysterious. Because there's a pattern emerging in scientific research that we can't ignore. Studies on consciousness, intention, and matter have revealed something fascinating. Observer effect in quantum physics shows that the act of observation changes the behavior of particles. Studies on heart coherence reveal that emotional states create measurable electromagnetic fields that extend beyond your body. Intention experiments have demonstrated statistically significant results in influencing random number generators, plant growth, and even water crystallization patterns. Now I want to be clear. These studies are still debated in mainstream science. Not all of them are conclusive. And correlation doesn't always mean causation. But here's what is undeniable. Your internal state, your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions shapes what you perceive as possible. And what you perceive as possible directly influences The actions you take, the opportunities you notice, the people you attract, and the reality you experience. Science explains the mechanism. How it works in your brain, your nervous system, your perception. Spirituality explains the meaning. Why it matters, what it's for, how to use it consciously. And together, they create a model where manifestation suddenly makes perfect sense. Not as magic, not as wishful thinking, but as the natural result of aligning your neurology with your intention. Part 6. 3 science-backed techniques. So how do you use this consciously? How do you intentionally shape the predictive loops inside your brain? Here are 3 science-backed methods you can start using today. Technique number 1. Future self-priming every morning. Spend 2 to 5 minutes vividly imagining a version of yourself who has already achieved what you want. Don't just see it, feel it. What does that version of you think? How do they move? How do they make decisions? This activates your brain's predictive circuits and begins encoding this future self as a real possibility, not a fantasy. Technique number 2. Emotional encoding. Stop focusing on what you want. Start focusing on how it would feel if you already had it. Your brain doesn't care about the object. It cares about the emotional state. When you can generate the feeling of already having it, your brain begins scanning for evidence that matches that state. Emotion makes the brain encode intention as priority. Technique number 3. Micro-evidence stacking. Every single day, consciously look for small signs that align with your intention. Did someone compliment you? Evidence of worthiness. Did you find $5 on the street? Evidence of abundance. Did an opportunity appear unexpectedly? Evidence that reality is responding. This trains your ass to highlight supportive evidence instead of contradictory evidence. You're literally rewiring what your brain considers normal. Small evidence becomes pattern. Pattern becomes belief. Belief becomes reality. Part 7. The 24-hour experiment. Now it's time for the experiment I promised at the beginning. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is pure neuroscience. And it is going to prove to you in the next 24 hours that your brain actively shapes what you perceive as reality. Here's what you're going to do. For the next 24 hours, I want you to tell your brain, show me blue butterflies. Not literal butterflies, the symbol, the image, the pattern. It can appear on TV, in advertisements, on someone's clothing, in a logo, on social media, in a book, anywhere. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to start seeing blue butterflies everywhere, and your first thought might be, whoa, that's so weird. They're appearing everywhere. But here's the truth. They were always there. Your brain just wasn't looking for them. Your race wasn't filtering for them. But the moment you gave your brain a target, the moment you made blue butterflies important, your RAS began highlighting them in your environment. This is the simplest, most undeniable demonstration of how intention directs perception. And perception directs experience. So here's what I want you to do. Do the 24-hour experiment. Count how many blue butterflies you find. And then come back to this video and comment the number below. Let's create a collective wave of conscious observation. I'll reply to everyone who does this. Part 8. Final integration. So what does all of this mean? It means manifestation isn't something mystical happening outside of you in some cosmic ordering system. It's happening inside your nervous system, constantly, automatically, whether you're aware of it or not. Through filtering, RAS, predicting, predictive processing, imagining, neuroplasticity, and emotionally encoding, limbic system. Your brain is constructing your experience of reality. You are manifesting all the time. The question is, are you manifesting consciously or accidentally? Are you directing the filter, or is the filter directing you? Because once you understand that your beliefs, thoughts, and emotions are literally shaping what you perceive as possible, you can begin to use this system intentionally. You can rewire the predictions. You can retrain the filter. You can emotionally encode a new future. And when you do that, reality begins to shift, not because the universe suddenly heard you, but because you started seeing differently. And when you see differently, you act differently. And when you act differently, you create differently. And when you create differently, you become different. That's manifestation. That's neuroscience. That's the quantum shift happening inside you. Okay, that's it. Now here's what happens next. If you want part 2, where I show you the advanced technique for rewriting your brain's predictive beliefs at the identity level, the method that makes manifestation practically unavoidable, here's what I need you to do. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And comment part 2 below. If I see enough people want this, I'll release the advanced training next week. And don't forget, do the 24-hour blue butterfly experiment and report your results in the comments. I want to hear your stories. Thousands of people have done this and been shocked by what they discovered about their perception. You're about to join them. I'm the quantum philosopher, and this is Quantum Genesis, where science meets the soul. Thank you for being here. Thank you for questioning. Thank you for choosing to see reality differently. Until next time, stay conscious.